Yep,
There we are.
there we go.
You're up.
Okay. I think the correct term is you're on. Action. All right, this meeting is being broadcast live and digitally recorded. Glad everybody out there in TV land can join us this evening. And we are convening the planning board meeting at 6:40 on the 13th of April. First order of business will be to review the minutes of February 3rd. Is that the only one we have, Janet?
Yes, it is.
Any corrections, deletions, or additions to the minutes of February 3rd?
On the second item, 107 Gardner Road.
Huh?
On the second item,
Okay.
107 Gardner Road, I thought we had a document that went along with this decision.
We do. We have a special permit decision that we filed with the clerk, but this is just the minutes of the meeting indicating what we did that evening.
Okay, it doesn't mention the document.
Oh, we can put that in.
Well, we actually signed the document last meeting, so it would be,
Right, it's
it
not
would
in
show
the
up in that
minutes,
next meeting minutes.
Okay, I can live with that, as long as we catch it somewhere.
It will be in the
The
next one.
decision, yeah. The findings and the
because we-
decision. Okay.
Met again and talked about it.
Anything else?
Make the motion, we accept the minutes.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Joe?
Opposed, so voted. Nothing wrong, Janet. That was good, huh?
If I could get the others done, then we'll be all right.
Thank you. Any correspondence this evening that we need to look at? All right, I have something from FEMA for the Federal Emergency Management agency's upcoming risk mapping, assessment, and planning discovery meeting for the Nashua watershed. Anybody interested in that?
I'll take it. Cause I had applied to the agricultural commission because we're doing a planning, for emergency evacuation of animals in case we have a hurricane or what to do with them.
Oh, cool. Well, that'll work. And we have a notice of decision to grant the variance from the zoning board of appeals. It was granted to Craig Osowski for the property owned by Valerie Ingman, located at 34 Morgan Road, dated April 7, 2016. Granted pursuant to the Town of Hubbardston zoning bylaw, Article 5, Section 5.1, Table of Dimensional Regulations. Apparently there was a deck or some such built too close to the setbacks.
Doesn't that come to us first?
No.
Or does it go right to the zoning board of appeals?
It goes to the code enforcement officer who makes the decision whether or not it's within the dimensional requirement.
That's Larry.
Larry. And he decided that it was too close to the line and denied the building permit or told them to take it down and said that it had to be removed.
Mhm.
And they appealed that. And
Okay,
that
to the
appe-
ZBA.
Is correct. That appeal goes to the ZBA. And they were granted the variance. And this is the letter that I wrote the other day to Larry Brandt for the issue on Route 68 and 62 to porta potties. And I'll read this so everybody knows what we said. This was after the meeting the other day. I need a date on this though, Janet. At the planning board meeting of April 6, 2016, a concern by one of the members was raised regarding the apparent storage of porta potties, movable, temporary sanitary facilities at the property owned by Mr. Cove at the intersections of Route 68 and 62. Planning board does not feel that storage of these items are allowed under the Hubbardston zoning bylaws. As you know, we just denied an application for a special permit for a dumpster business on Route 68. A very similar issue that we found was not allowable under the Hubbardston zoning bylaws. We also had a concern that any waste contained in a dumpster and spilled could cause a health hazard and may contaminate the groundwater. We feel that the storage of these porta potties also pose such a health contamination risk. If these porta potties were to leak, spill, or be cleaned on the premises, it would obviously introduce human waste into the groundwater. We therefore are respectfully requesting that you look into this situation. We have consulted with Anita Shipers, town administrator at the time, and she agreed with us that you can utilize the services of Bill Murray of Places Inc. to investigate and report on the situation in order to help you arrive at a solution. We will also be copying the Board of Health so they will be aware of this situation. That was what we did after meeting last week.
What was the date? You can just scribble it on there.
Yeah, just, I don't know what date you wrote this on. What was
Yesterday.
yesterday?
I think so.
4/12. Alrighty.
And where do those letters go?
Well, this one went to the Board of Health.
No, after you. And where does it get
Oh,
filed? I'm sorry.
in the file,
What file?
correspondence.
It's just correspondence.
Probably the only file we know of.
It's probably the only one we have.
Well, sometimes, like that 107 Gardner Road, I'm gonna put it in with that,
Yeah.
in with the street address file.
So I assume Larry probably hasn't even got that yet since it just was written yesterday, right? Do I need to sign that, by the way?
You do.
Oh, yeah, I did already. That's right too.
I'm just here to help.
Okay.
We're on TV.
Well, yeah, not like making you fool of yourself in front of millions.
Several hundred.
Several hundred.
Several.
Wow, is it hot in here? Ooh. Okay, new business. Review proposal to develop a finding on whether or not an infill project is an allowable use under Hubbardston zoning bylaws. Tom, you got any input you wanna develop on this one?
T1 or T2?
I'm sorry?
T1 or T2?
Which one are you?
I'm 2.
Okay.
Oh, you're one.
I wrote a letter, last meeting, and I presented a letter to everyone at the end of the meeting, and I felt that we should be sending a letter to the building inspector with our findings, whether or not this use that Mr. Brown has proposed to selectmen, would be an allowable use under the current zoning bylaw. The issue I see, the way I saw it, is that Mr. Brown's attorneys have pointed out that the earth removal bylaw does not apply to this project. And he also goes on to say in his letters that this is a new use. So we're not gonna, I don't think that we have to really discuss whether this use, whether we wanna allow this use at the gravel pit. We don't wanna allow this use under the under the earth removal bylaw. We wanna review this use under the zoning bylaw. Do I make that clear?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well,
Maybe I'll read it, it'd probably be.
Let me make that a little clearer then. What we need to do is, we have, according to Attorney Dineski, the opportunity to regulate under the earth removal bylaw. But it's his comment that it needs to be also considered under zoning. So what we need to do is decide whether or not it's an allowable use under zoning.
Okay,
All right, and that would be what we would call a finding, and that finding we would just make as an official decision by the planning board as to whether or not this use is allowed under zoning regulations.
okay.
So,
You all got a copy of the letter that I gave to the meeting last week,
Mhm.
right? I don't know if you wanna make any changes to this, you want to, any recommendations, whether we wanna send it or not.
well, I think what we need to do is use your letter as the basis of what we're trying to do tonight, which is establish a finding or a decision as to whether or not we believe this or any infill project is allowed under zoning.
Right.
And then we have to document where we believe it is not allowed, what citations we need to believe it's not allowed. So I'm not sure your letter is relevant, other than bringing it into the
Okay,
context of a finding.
okay, I'm happy with that.
So,
Well, the paragraphs 1 and 2 do a good job of pulling
Well,
up the zoning.
Why don't I read?
correct, we can use that,
Yeah,
but what we're doing is researching the zoning to determine whether or not we believe it's allowable use under zoning. That's what we're doing.
okay.
This is
We're gonna
just-
open up the
We're gonna
zoning bylaw and read it. Or-
determine whether or not it's allowed under zoning. And
Okay.
where, if it's not allowed, we have to cite that where it's not allowed and what we believe if it's allowable or not.
All right.
So all of the information that Tom has written is relevant, but we're not discussing your letter, and we're not voting on your letter. What we have to
Okay.
do is, make a decision on whether or not we believe it's allowable.
Okay,
I'm gonna open that door if anybody. It's too cold, let me know.
okay, I'll open it up and I'm reading what I wrote here on number 1. The Hubbardston zoning bylaw says in section 5.4, private dumps and commercial landfills, dumping, abandonment, or disposal of vehicles, equipment, appliances, demolition material, or any other waste matter is prohibited in all districts. Mr. Brown's proposal is to bring waste materials from construction sites in the Boston area and to deposit them in Hubbardston for a fee. I believe that this would make this a commercial landfilling operation, thereby making the process the proposed project prohibited. But this wouldn't just go to Mr. Brown's, it would be any
Commercial activity,
commercial activity.
okay?
Well, does it have to be commercial?
Well, it says in the zoning bylaw. It does.
Well, no, but Tom's question was, does it have to be commercial? And
To be prohibited.
to be prohibited, and that would, in my opinion, be no also because of section 4.8.
Which is depositing other waste matter? or-
No, section 4.8 states that unless there is a use that is specifically allowed under zoning bylaws, then it is prohibited.
Well, we're gonna get to that one next.
That's the
but
next
Right, but
That's the next one.
that's,
But 5.4 specifically just goes for dumping, and in the dumping in 5.4, it specifically says that it defines dumping as a commercial thing, so.
correct,
So there's two reasons why I don't feel that it's allowable.
correct, but let me just
Okay.
make the point. Tom's question was, does it have to be commercial? And to the point that it's commercial, it fits into 5.4. To the point that it does not have to be commercial, to be not allowed, fits under 4.8. You know, we have to be clear on how it categorized.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking at June 2015's zoning bylaws. And I think you mean section 4.5,
Oh, perhaps I do, I thought it was
not
4.8.
No, it's
5.4. Help me here.
All right, well, let's
It's
just go.
4.8 actually, Tom.
This-
Well, you have 5.4, and 5 is the next whole chapter about development regulations. So it's not that, is it?
Yep,
Yeah.
private dumps, 5.4, page 12.
14.
Oh, private dumps, commercial landfill, okay, then your reference is right, I was still
Here it
in the permitted uses by district and all that stuff.
Remember what I told you before, Tom?
So 5.4 and 4.8 are the sections,
Yeah.
prohibited uses. So 4.8 says prohibited uses. Any use not specifically listed in these zoning bylaws shall be deemed to be prohibited. Uses which are dangerous or detrimental to a neighborhood because of fire or explosive hazard, offensive noise, smoke, vibration, harmful radioactivity, electrical interference, dust, odor, fumes, heat, glare, unsightliness, or other objectable characteristics are prohibited. This includes but is not limited to quarrying. So that's the second one, Tom. I was unable to find any citation in the bylaws that allowed any importation of soil to the, under zoning. And the two items that I came up with were, I agree with you, 5.4 and 4.8, which do not allow infill, either with private dumps or under prohibited uses.
Now, what about the earth removal bylaw? General-
That's not relevant here, cause that's a general bylaw.
Okay,
we're
so
talking
not-
zoning.
We're just not even, that's not even discussed.
Right.
Right, okay.
What we're trying to do is determine whether we believe under zoning bylaws, this is an allowable use. And if we can find an example of how it's allowed, that's fine. If we can't, then we've got two examples of where it's not allowed.
Correct.
And, has anybody else had a chance to look at them to determine anything else?
Does this finding in any way, let me start over again. Mr. Doneski's letter was 4 pages of if this, then that, if this, then that, and I've tried to take it apart and understand it. But my basic question is, and Mr. Doneski's letter refers to a whole string of things that can be done under the zoning, under the general bylaw, 19. So are we just putting that stuff all aside and finding a zoning bylaw only?
Correct.
All right, so.
Because as Dineski concludes.
Does doing that preclude revisiting 19? the
No,
general bylaw?
it was
Okay,
two
then I'm
separate
happy.
and distinct customers here, and as
Yeah.
it says in the conclusion of Dineski's article, if the town does not choose to exercise the earth removal bylaw, which he believes we have jurisdiction under that as well,
That means the planning board does
planning
not
board
choose to exercise.
does have jurisdiction. To that extent, it is my view that reclamation activity beyond that required and approved in the 2004 permit renewal is subject to the provisions of the zoning bylaw and a determination of allowable use. So we're not making a determination, that's up to the building inspector, we know that.
Right.
But what we can do is we can determine, we can make a finding, which is an official way of saying that we believe something is or
And
is
we're
not.
gonna communicate this to the building inspector,
Of course.
and that's the whole deal
Let's
here.
just step back a bit, why I originally wrote this letter, and why I thought we should address this under the general zoning, under the the zoning bylaws. Because the letter from the attorney,
From whose attorney? Donetsky?
Donetsky's and Mr. Brown's attorney, and all the evidence has been put forward since both of those things have been put in, indicates that Mr. Brown feels that the gravel pit has been closed. I think that's their assertion. So, and they also say that this is a new use. So that's why it's kind of moved over into the zoning bylaw. And why we're really not discussing the earth removal gravel, because I think it's been pretty much determined that that's not relevant by both attorneys.
I disagree with you strongly.
Okay.
The first two and a half pages of Donetsky's letter is all about how, if certain conditions exist, i.e. the pit is not closed, that's the main one, then 19 is in effect. And he states that the town body, and it goes on to define that as the planning board, retains the right to enforce the permit conditions even if the permit is expired and the owner of the permit or the owner of the land didn't fulfill the conditions. The planning board has the right to go on and enforce them under 19, the general bylaw 19. That's what I think he said. Now, someday we'll have a good conversation with this guy, but I'm reading his letter, and that's what I think he says.
I agree. That's what he said, and I agree that, it's a new use, but I think we need to move on from the general bylaw and concentrate on this
Tonight? Fine.
right
Okay.
now.
As long as we're
That's-
not giving up on rights on
Oh, no,
on
not a
other
thing.
laws
No,
and
we're
other
trying to make a
interpretations.
finding or a determination as to whether
Yep.
this type of activity is an allowable use under zoning,
So,
period.
if zoning is in effect, here's our finding.
That's correct.
If it's not in effect, we'll go do something else.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not correct. Zoning is in effect, and doesn't necessarily apply to this activity, except in the context of it being not allowed,
Okay.
all right?
I'm
That's
okay
my
with it.
conclusion. That's the only conclusion I can see, because I see nothing that allows that activity in our zoning bylaws. Does anybody else see that?
And
I
just for everybody's information, the question of is the pit closed or not is presently before Donetsky.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
But again, that's not
I
germane
know,
to
I
the
know,
I
but
discussion.
just so that it closes that question.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
know that.
But, we can discuss that later, but right now, what we need to do is make that decision.
Well, I've gone through myself, I've gone through the zoning bylaws, and I can't find any way that it's mentioned in there in any way whatsoever. So I would have to vote that, say that, it wouldn't be allowed. It's my opinion.
And I believe that it would not be allowed also if there wasn't a fee involved. If it was just a regular, someone wanted to do it on their
Correct.
property.
Okay.
So it's not dependent on whether there's a fee or not.
I went through it and I couldn't find anything. So I agree with you.
Just write this down.
You're gonna weave together this letter?
Yeah, we're gonna need a motion right now, so let me put
Right.
something together here.
I'll have to say, we're a lot better behaved with the camera on.
Okay, so let's try this. This is a finding by the planning board after review of the zoning board bylaws, the zoning bylaws, not the zoning board. This is not an allowable use under the current bylaws. We find that it is specifically prohibited under Article 5.4, private dumps and commercial landfills. Further, we find that because it is a use not specifically listed in the zoning bylaws, it is deemed to be prohibited under Article 4.8, prohibited uses. So that would should read, the planning board finds, after review of the zoning bylaws, this is not an allowable use under the current zoning bylaws.
Just a question, if the article at the town meeting, that article is on the town meeting warrant, right? The
Yeah, it will
one
be.
for Emery, Mary Ann?
It will be.
It will be. That-
No, not even gonna go there, that's not germane to this, with this, developing a finding.
Okay,
We can talk about that at another subject,
Okay.
but right now, you know, what, this is, what happens in the future
okay,
doesn't mean anything in
Okay.
this discussion.
okay.
So that would be the, unless somebody wants to revise it a little bit, that would be the content of the motion. Make sense?
Yeah, I have one comment. Mr. Brown wrote a letter to Doneski and claiming the pit was closed, or maybe he didn't claim the pit was closed in that particular letter. But in any event, he said, and I'm sorry if I can't quote you correctly, but he said that ultimately this property would be conservation or open space area, recreation, common or parkland. That's 4.1D, which is permitted by right in residential districts. And he said that in the context, or at least I think he said it in the context of,
Wasn't my letter. So, just wanna put that out there.
Same last name.
it was,
Wasn't a letter I wrote.
was it your lawyer?
Yes.
Could have been, but it wasn't a letter I wrote.
Okay, some member
we
of
do
the
have that.
Brown team wrote a letter to Doneski saying that, look, when we're all done filling this thing in, it's gonna be conservation land, or,
Which is an allowable
which
use.
is an allowable use.
That was,
and
that was
The lawyer
an
went on,
attorney's
or
letter.
Mr. Brown went on to, Mr. Brown, the younger, went on,
Junior. I wanna say junior.
went on to state that he would make that clear in his letter to Larry.
Right.
Do we need to address that?
No. Again, that's not what we're finding. We're finding what is allowed under our current bylaws here and now.
Okay, thought I'd just bring it up.
Has that letter been written to Larry yet, or no?
Have no idea.
I asked Larry the other day, he hadn't received it.
Okay.
I have that letter someplace. So,
That's an interesting point of view.
Well, it can be true whether it's infilled or not.
yeah, that would have been Norman Brown
It was
before.
an email.
Yep.
One sentence email.
But again, that's not germane to what we're doing tonight. It's,
Well, I don't want Larry, or I shouldn't say that. I'd say if Larry has the opportunity to have his own finding that this infill results in, rather than evaluating the activity of infilling, he evaluates the end result.
He can't, because the activity is the use, and that's all he can determine.
Okay. Just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay.
Never heard that one.
Anybody, comments or anything?
Nope, you wanna try to just read it through once like a regular
Sure.
paragraph and see how it sounds? If you can read your writing.
Yeah. I just have to make one more. Let me find, I just need the right term to fill in here.
What are you looking for?
Just wanna make sure I say the right terms, which everybody else has been using.
He has, which would then make the filling activity a land use subject to evaluation under the zoning bylaw. So the filling activity is the use. He also says that reclamation activity beyond that required is subject to the provisions of the bylaw, zoning bylaw. Any determination of allowed use.
Someplace.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the term that will fit into the
What's a
finding.
synonym? What's another word for it?
I believe it's defined under the DEP order that,
Number 15 there?
310 CMR Department of Environmental Protection, is that it? No, that's not it. What's the policy, Tom, that DEP is working on?
That's the interim policy.
Right here.
That's
This
what I
one,
want.
15?
You want the interim policy?
That's right, that's
Yeah,
right,
right
there we go, that's what I'm,
I've got that. At the beginning.
okay, so here it is here.
Our complementary page references that interim policy.
I realize that, I just couldn't find it in there. Here it is here. Okay. So the finding would read, the planning board finds, after review of the Hubbardston zoning bylaws, that the interim policy on the reuse of soil for large reclamation projects is not an allowable use under the current zoning bylaws. We find that it is specifically prohibited under section 5.4, private dumps and commercial landfills. Further, we find that because it is a use not specifically listed in the zoning bylaws, it is deemed to be prohibited under Article 4.8, prohibited uses.
That's
Better?
important. Because Mr. Brown, as he well knows, doesn't state in the document submitted that it would be in accordance with that policy. But Anita's letter did say that.
So that would be the contents of the findings. Everybody agree with that? Anybody wanna comment on that?
I'm happy with
All
that.
right.
Happy with that.
Then I'll entertain a motion to,
You take this back?
no, not just, well, yeah, I've got it, yeah.
I'm,
Motion to
so moved,
use this as a finding by the planning board.
so moved.
There a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. All right, so that's the finding. And, we'll pass that along. All right.
That's done. Now, one question about this letter, this finding. I think we should send it to the select board.
Yes, we'll send it to everybody.
We should, the attorney,
Mhm.
Janeski.
Right.
And I think we should send it to the person that Tom's been talking to at DEP.
Yeah, we can do that. It's simply a decision, so it
Mhm.
can be disseminated, sure.
Okay?
All
And
right,
then-
now, we have a discussion on the next agenda item, a discussion of a proposed letter to DEP about concerns on proposed Browns infill project. Now, that is also yours, correct, Tom?
Yeah, but I think we let the one, if we just send them that finding, I think that would do exactly the same thing, what the intent was.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone feels that they should send that, or, as long as he's on the email list, or maybe the mailing list,
Is this the one to Mark Baldy?
yes.
All right. All right,
So I kinda withdraw that from discussion.
Alright.
Well, let's just look at it. You had quite a few points. Did we get all the points? You have what, 7?
well, we can review this, but
I
it's
really
gonna
don't
be
wanna
a
get
separate
into,
item.
I don't wanna
Alright.
get into big discussion about whether this is allowable use and,
Okay.
the whole gravel thing, it's not really important.
Okay. So let's go. Number 3, review your report.
Oh,
Not
report.
your report, but the report to the town, which is due April the 15th on all existing gravel operations.
All right.
And thank you for writing it.
Oh, we
Like
haven't
to
seen
get
it
the-
yet. We haven't seen it yet.
Well, that's okay.
I'd like to get 3
Something
days of
got
my
written.
life back again. I think I'll remove it. I'll read it go read it over here. But just, this is the beginning here.
And this, by the way, is requirement under the
19.
chapter 19 of the general bylaws, correct?
The general bylaw, chapter 19, section 4G4. This is the annual report of the current activity and status of all earth removal operations in the town. To generate this report, I searched all the planning board, building inspector's property files in the building inspector's office, the files in the vault controlled by the town clerk, the online property cards of the Board of Assessors, and interviewed the land use clerk, town clerk, assessors clerk, and the chairman of the planning board. I also searched the GIS maps and Google Maps to locate the existing earth removal operations. The files on gravel removal were spread out in 7 different file cabinets and spread between different drawers in the same cabinet. I was only able to find 3 earth removal permits. One permit was with no name, but and no date, but with an assessor's page and parcel number. Another dated 10/1/98 to Pitcherville Sand and Gravel that expires on 10/1/2001. And another to 2012 to Hubbardston Sand and Gravel LLC dated 3/14/12 and expired 3/14/2014. As far as I can determine from the files, there is no open or ongoing earth gravel permits. Since the general bylaw was updated in 2010, there has been one earth removal pit as noted above. Finn Ritchie, chairman of the planning board, did note that Hackler Construction was given approval to remove from his small pit. This would be under the 1,000 cubic yard exemption that is described in the bylaw. Jeff had provided all the engineering and planning board at a planning board meeting. On 5/29/13, Leading Way Development was approved to remove a small amount of gravel for a new house lot on Pitcherville Road. No file of either of these two approvals were found. Based on my research, Section 5 existing operations of the 2010 bylaw, there should be no activity of earth removal operating in Hubbardston. If there is any earth removal being done, it is a violation of the general bylaw, earth removal, and should be reported to the planning board. Note, I think this may also apply to the town pit. We have to discuss that, I don't know.
It does.
It does, okay. Although there are not currently any open permits, GIS maps of the town show there are a large number of former earth removal operations that have not been reclaimed. When the general bylaw was passed in 2010, Section 5 existing operations explains that the existing operations should develop a transition plan for the operation within 30 days of the revised bylaw adoption. I was unable to find any records of any translation plans for any property. The earth removal bylaw, section 13 penalties, allows the planning board to assess a penalty of $300 a day for earth removal operations that violate the bylaw. The following are objectives that the planning board will work on in the coming fiscal year. Remove all earth removal files from the different locations and locate it in one place, one location. Recommend to the select board that a new procedure should be put in place, that all original permits of any type should be given to the town clerk to be filed in the vault. A copy of permits should be kept in the planning board files. I would recommend that this procedure for all departments. The planning board shall develop a spreadsheet of former earth removal operations. The information will include listing by the assessors page, lot number, names, address, current owner, current tax code, and assessment, and the view of the current operations, if any. The planning board members shall contract all former operators, visit the site, and request that they develop a transition plan within 90 days. If they do not comply with our request, the planning board will move forward with assessing penalties as outlined in section 13 of General Bylaw 19. It is not the planning board's intent to assess fines to the property owners, but rather to enforce the existing earth removal bylaw. In reviewing the files, I found that 75% of the information in the files was related to lawsuits by the town or against the town. The town has spent thousands of dollars on these lawsuits. The 2010 bylaw gives us the ability to move forward and finally get a handle on this ongoing problem within the town. That was submitted by me.
Comment, a good report, a lot of
Very good.
digging.
Thank you.
Would you
Lot
like
of
me to
work.
copy that?
Right.
Everybody?
Everyone, I gave copies to everyone.
Oh,
I gave you a copy too.
oh, you did?
When did you give us?
When'd you give me?
I gave this to you when I first came in, when I was messing around with the copy machine.
I don't think I have one.
I gave one,
This is Mr. Walden's,
I must have given you the wrong one.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, you gave us all the wrong one.
Oh, okay. We'll give you a copy. Anyway, I thought I gave everyone,
You
one.
understand that's a dead one.
Yeah, that's a dead one, yeah. Anyway,
I thought in your report though, you said we'd do this, this, and this. I thought there was a step missing. If someone had provided a bond of some type, you could exercise the bond before you start fining him $300 a day.
well, I think the first thing we should do is talk to the people and find out where they are. I'm not aware of any bonds. Are you, Ben?
Well, how would you find out? You gotta go over to the treasurer or something?
I need more, I need to do more digging, I think,
I'm just saying it's an action, you have to kind of check that box before you go on and start implementing any kind of
well,
penalty.
I think it's just an idea to go and, to get the ball rolling.
All right, excellent report in terms of getting the ball rolling, no
Right.
problem.
So, just some background information, Janet was there. The files are just unbelievable. I mean, it's just incredible. And I was going through I went through every file cabinet and every drawer. The only drawer I didn't really attack was Fletcher's, because it was an entire drawer. And he owns so much property up there. So,
One other comment. I forget the gentleman's name, but he came, he's the dog, associated with the dog lady? Christopher.
Oh,
The-
yeah, Tom Christopher.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought he had an outstanding permit or permission or something to haul off topsoil,
He does.
and that didn't come up in your list that I heard.
didn't see it.
He does have permission to do that. He does have a permit, in fact, and we renewed it, I
Last
think in
fall.
December, November.
Where is it?
I don't know. I know we have
I
it.
forgot about that one, yeah, I have a copy.
So that
So
would
this
just
is a-
amend the report to read that he is also permitted.
Do you know of anything else? I mean, I actually added the, actually, this was all written, and before, just after supper, I was reading it over, I remembered about Lead the Way.
Who?
Lead the Way Development, I remember
Oh,
I happened-
Jean LeBlanc.
Gene LeBlanc, I actually,
Yeah.
I was getting my papers together, and
Well,
that
you
was
said
part
you
of it.
can't find his permit. Well, I have it.
You do?
Yeah, May 2013.
Well, that was just from the planning board, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, isn't that the permit? It was built
that
as
was,
the permit.
yeah, it is. That was, there was no permit given, it was the decision by the planning board. So basically.
It functions as a permit.
It functions, yeah. But basically, we need to go through these files, there's lots of duplicates of a lot of stuff in there. I talked to Joyce, and Joyce thought it would be a good idea if the select board put some sort of a procedure together for, not just the planning board, for every board. Cause Joyce was kind of an afterthought, remember, we said, well, maybe Joyce has something. So she pulls open the drawer and it says, earth removal permits. There was one file in there, there was one permit in there, it was to Mr. Brown's.
Well, does the planning
Strange.
board have a file outline?
What's that?
An outline?
The files that we keep. For instance, correspondence by date, correspondence by project list.
That does not
I mean,
exist.
there's no, what does everybody do? Just take a manila folder, write something on it, and put it in a drawer?
Well, we have a couple of drawers that are designated for A and R,
Right.
special permits.
I know, but they're still just in a drawer.
Yeah,
The earth removal is in 7 different cabinets, and at least 3, so most cabinets had 2 drawers worth of, somewhere in there was earth removal, right? You've been through there.
yeah, after I went through all of those cabinets, it looked to me like they were filing everything by year. And
Oh, that would have been.
it would
makes sense.
pretty much try to figure out what year, whatever issue is you're looking for, and then try to find it in the
Yeah,
cabinet.
but you can keep a list of projects.
Oh, yeah,
and then say
there's no
year.
organization outside of that, that's all I'm saying. Yeah.
But
It's
Joyce
just a mess.
is the she keeps the records in the town, that's what she told me today. There's certain things that have to go through her.
Right.
But I think, she said there's certain things like, the minutes giving lead the way development approval doesn't have to go through her because it's not a part of the law. But it would be a good idea if we made a copy for her and we could put it in the file, a file for like earth removal.
Does she have a filing system?
Yeah.
I mean, she was able to go over and.
No, she knew exactly what I was talking about.
All right, well, we
There's
gotta
just
get
nothing in the file.
we gotta get a town standard for filing. If one doesn't exist, the new administrator or secretary
Yeah.
can make one up. Yes.
One question, if I may. Has, the planning board ever done an audit of pits before?
An audit
Well, similar to what you're doing now?
of pits.
Yeah.
No, not an official audit, no.
Well, not in
Just a
our
question.
lifetime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've seen no audit, I've seen only,
I've seen two lawsuits in the files accusing the town
I've
of
only
not
seen,
doing 'em.
yeah, assessors records on
Mm.
pits, not planning board, right?
Well, we need to establish some rules and then start living by them.
That would be a good meeting, a joint meeting with the selectmen, with all the committees, really. Say, but Joyce has the vault, it's fire safe, so I mean, if the building burns down, theoretically, at least we'd have something.
Well, the current gravel bylaw that we have, number 19 in general bylaws, we started working on that, I believe in 2001. And, finally, in 2010, we actually had one that was approved in either '08 or '09, but finally 2010 was the one we have today that was refined. And we also have a set of rules and regulations that go along with that bylaw. And I'll give credit to Bill Murray for being the prime mover in making sure everything came together with his office for that particular bylaw, sitting with the planning board and coming up with the information that he put together so that it does make sense. So we're working on that and the enforcement aspect of it, but quite frankly, it's been a huge task.
Got another
And-
question.
Yeah,
Please.
Is there a file on pit inspections?
Nope.
No, nothing on pit inspections either?
we have nothing from the Bureau of Mines.
I mean, from the town, cause I got inspected every 2 years.
From who? From the town?
Yeah.
By whom?
By the engineer?
By Salem?
By Salem?
By the town engineer, yeah.
Yeah.
By the town engineer.
See, that's when those records were kept by the select board. Now, maybe select board has a whole compilation that we don't.
We don't, they don't.
They don't.
I checked, I went to see the new town administrator, I probably should've put her name on the list. I
How
went
would
to-
she know?
Well, she would know, I think.
So they would come out and do an inspection and not give a report? to the-
No, that's not necessarily true. What we're saying is, we don't have
a
our
copy
hands
of
on
the
those
report.
reports.
I was
And any inspection report that I have seen has been done when somebody requests, whether it was you or whether it was the Board of Selectmen,
My permits required.
your permit required, okay.
It does? Who
But-
did the inspection?
I don't know who does the inspections
Well,
now, he was the town engineer at the time.
The ones that were on record were done by Salick, S-A-L-U-K, Salick and Associates. His first name was Bruce Salick, and I might even have a,
Well, I kept.
No, I don't have it with me,
There's a bunch
but-
of records in the old fire station, right, upstairs?
yeah,
Maybe I should head there next.
that might be there.
Maybe that would be where they might be.
Your attorney has some of his information, so.
Yeah, we have a,
You
we have
provided
a,
a solid
Yeah, we
report.
provided the information
Yeah.
already.
yeah, we
A
have
Salick
something from
report, right,
Salick
Mark? One Salick report?
so far.
I think probably more,
They probably more were done, but we only have seen one.
a letter,
Yeah.
sure, a letter, not with the reports, I don't think you got.
And
any-
that was in reference to the question of the $10,000 deposit. that-
No, that's a whole different thing.
No, but
this
that
was a-
letter came in
Oh.
that same bunch
Yeah.
of correspondence that
Yeah.
was about that.
There were
town.
four
Yeah, there was a
attachments.
there was a bunch of stuff that was sent to your attorney.
Right, and
Four,
that's,
four attachments.
so that's the only one I've seen.
Yeah.
But again, that was prior to the
I'm just
planning.
surprised that cause I got it
Well,
every.
we're not saying they don't exist.
Yeah, I know.
We're just saying we don't
Yeah.
have them in our hands.
I'm just surprised if I'm the only one that's in the file.
Yeah.
It
Well-
sounds that way.
When I was an assessor, we did quite a bit of work with the Marinelli pit.
Yeah.
And I know there's a pretty good file on that, but that's for whole different ideas than what we're talking about now.
And somebody else was down there blasting, weren't they?
That would have
was
been a
Fletcher.
Fletcher quarry.
That was a Fletcher quarry.
Yeah, but that was back in the early 90s or 80s. I wasn't even in
92.
town then.
91, 92.
Yeah. But,
It says in your permit here that they allow, the engineers should be allowed to do an inspection, but it doesn't give a timeline of dates to do the inspection.
Is that the original permit or the latest permit?
This is the original 1998 permit.
But see, all this is not a big deal, because those records were not
That's-
kept by us. They were kept by select board up until 2010.
And quite honestly, a
28.
lot of that stuff is completely irrelevant now with the new bylaw, because there's no grandfathering allowed. So the new bylaw is
Just
actually
wash.
really good, because it just wiped out the whole past, and we just really have to worry about going forward. And we do have this, anything that happened after Joyce came, and after that new bylaw came into being, is accounted for. It's just the old stuff and prior stuff. I mean,
Along these same lines, one of the reasons some of this filing isn't always so good is because we never pay anybody to do it. We never have any money currently. And Vince and I met with the accountant, and we tried to find some money. I found Ansar Solar.
Oh, you found the file?
I found Ansar Solar on the web.
Okay.
They're in
Fellow from Situate?
Quincy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. How did you? What a memory.
Well, he came in, and he was the first person to come into town with a solar proposal, probably back in 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And it was,
Well, what I'm saying is that money probably won't be available to us.
I think he's out of business, in fact. And the auditors have said that it's been, that fund and that money in that fund has been there for so
Dormant,
long
yeah.
that it's available. I mean,
Okay, well, my point is, we might be able to find some money and buy some hours and
have
get some of
somebody
this
check, yeah.
Well,
stuff done.
to be fair too, how many clerks have we gone through?
312, I think.
We've gone through lots of different clerks, so, and Janet's can't leave for 10 years, so we're good, so we just gotta get her going.
Is that-
Holy
Roll up the overtime.
Chain on your leg.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I did go through a search, just so you know, went on GIS and his pictures here, so it was pretty easy to find them. And, at least most of them. I did find in the files, inventory in 2001, there seemed that someone had done a lot of work on this. Just so you know, we have one, I found one map here. This was dated 1889. Assessors map with the names of all the people on 'em. But none of this is done. So what I have done is I just do my chicken scratch.
Now, are you walking around with originals here?
No, those are all copies.
Okay.
I've got my list of lot numbers and owners. I get this off of GIS. I'm gonna run a spreadsheet with the lot number. And once I get on the spreadsheet, I can put it in alphabetical order. And then I can go to the assessors GIS program on the computer and get all the names and addresses. And I'm working with the assessor. What's her name? Margaret, and she's gonna help me to find out where the tax categories for a lot of these people, because some of the parcels when I was looking with her, people are being taxed as just non-buildable vacant land, and some of them are taxed as a gravel pit. Do you know what yours is being taxed as?
Mine was changed from a gravel pit to a non-buildable
Right, so,
in
but
2007, I believe.
right.
How was that one of the attachments?
That makes a difference, I know, I didn't get the rate, I guess.
Oh,
The-
huge difference.
Huge difference, yeah.
Huge difference, yeah.
So this is a way,
Because the one they're taxing, the way it was explained to me when the beginning, one is you're taxing it because of the value of the material on the
Right.
property, the other one's being taxed at just the raw land value, you know.
just for an example, Mr. Fletcher's pit at map 3, lot 55, I think it's 15 acres, and it's one of the ones he wanted to take 25,000 yards of gravel out of. It's valued at $100,000. So she's gonna kinda go through this with me and try to get everyone. So once we go through this and find out which pits are operating, which ones are closed and everything, then we can get the tax
Just so
assessment.
there's no question, you volunteered for this.
I know, next time. I didn't volunteer to be clerk, but that happened anyway, so.
That's actually my map.
Oh, this one? Yeah, oh, okay. So, I mean, I enjoy doing it.
Great start.
Yeah, I enjoy doing it.
Well, I
so.
think you did a great job, Tom, and I think the report is really well done. I would just add that after what this immediate discussion just came about was that maybe a one additional sentence to the select board that the planning board is developing an action plan to make more sense of what we have involved with the town, and something to that effect, because that's what you're
Okay.
doing. But, that's a great report, thank you.
Okay, so what changes do you want me to make on it? 'Cause, we only
I
have-
would add the dog guy, Christopher's topsoil.
If you get that blue cell, just one more thing, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting and I don't mean to,
It's
Go
I
ahead.
don't, I don't know the protocol.
Well, just gotta get on TV. Come on, we'll close it.
That blue select letter you got, that was the last inspection on our pit. Just so
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
Is that still going or no? Is he-
That's fall.
that was submitted to the,
Oh, here.
Doneski by Mr. Brown, along with some other documents in regards to whether the pit's closed.
Okay. So what do you want me to add?
Well, the reference to Christopher Environmental is under the FALLINE development. That's the name of the lady that owns the former Andrews Turkey Farm out there on Route
Okay.
68. So it's FALLINE, that's what he is,
Development, okay.
development, yep.
Has a, gravel, what are they removing?
Well, basically, he reclaimed the previous owner went in there, stripped all the gravel off of it, and then broke up rocks, and then sent it off to, another gentleman from Northborough who continued to break up rocks and strip more and more material out of there. And they did that under the guise of an agricultural project because he raised pigs and turkeys. They polluted a brook, they just did everything that they shouldn't have done. Department of Agriculture gave up on them, and the EPA came in and ordered it to be reclaimed. And they brought in Tom Christopher with his Christopher Environmental, and he reclaimed it, and then finally the land was sold. Actually, it was sold during the reclamation to a lady who is a professor at University of Lowell, and she raises dogs, and her purpose of having that land is so that she can train her dogs. And they went in there and brought in the short paper fiber, is that what the name of it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have forgot to bring that.
And they put that whole thing down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they have a tremendous amount of topsoil that they still have available there, but they've reclaimed the whole area, and now it looks like a park.
So we can
Beautiful.
sell that? So what do you wanna put on here, that just?
I would, on the third paragraph, no file for either of these two approvals were found, period, that's fine.
Mhm.
Also, Mr. Christopher representing Faline
FALLINE, fall line, called it
has permission or a permit
a permit.
to remove topsoil.
Reclaim and, remove topsoil, right.
Well, the
that's what it is.
reclaim is complete, now, do we
Well,
announce
it's a
that?
continuation. When he
Oh,
came
yeah,
in, and
that's right.
he continued
So-
his reclamation
So he
project.
can remove topsoil from that plot,
From site,
he's got a pile there,
okay,
and if he ever finds anybody that wants it, he's gonna remove some.
okay. I'll just, you want me to just, I'll make these changes, I'll email it to everyone, make sure it's okay, and then I'll just type everyone's name in the bottom here. We don't have to sign it.
You know,
Yeah, if you're,
well, if those are the only corrections we need on the report, we can vote on it, and then it's done, you know. Like I said, my only comment would be that we would be continuing with an action plan to.
yeah, who's the audience? This goes to the selectmen?
Yep.
Selectmen, okay. Yeah, so we've added a sentence at the end, we're continuing to,
Yep, develop an action plan to straighten out the gravel situation, especially within our internally filed system.
That was number 2, right? Oh, that's just wanna add another one, an action plan for filing.
Yep.
So we wanna ask the selectmen,
yeah, let's distinguish between straightening out the paper and straightening out the pits. This effort is aimed at both.
an action plan for what? For paperwork?
Well, you've got, in number 2, you say new procedure to put in place original permits and
Well,
straighten
just,
out
we'll
our
just
file.
change recommendation.
That's done.
A new procedure, why don't we just say an action plan instead of new procedure?
All right.
Is that okay, just change that word?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't make a motion
I
to
know.
accept my report.
I'll make a motion to accept this report with the comments and that it would be approved by vote here and the names electronically attached to them dated today and it be forwarded to the select board.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So vote. All right, thank you, Tom.
Good job.
All right,
Finally get to use my degree from college.
there you go.
After 40 years.
That moves us to our executive session. And we are going into executive session in respect to section Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collect. No, that's not the one,
Respect
sorry.
to-
Check that.
Here's your,
That's litigation. You just have to
that's what
read
it
that.
says.
Yeah, to discuss strategy with respect to possible litigation with regard to gravel pit enforcement of all non-compliant gravel permits in town. That's what we'll be doing. I will need a motion to, bear with me, I always
Here
forget
it
this
is here.
word.
I think it says you need.
Bye, thank you.
Good night and thanks for coming.
Good night, folks.
Thanks, Pat.
I always forget this word drives me crazy at every meeting, is to, not adjourn, but to, you know.
No, I knew what you were gonna say, I was gonna say it, then I
Huh?
forgot.
Convene?
No, not convene, that's to bring up,
Not read to you have to
It's convene and reconvene. Oh, to suspend.
suspend.
Suspend the,
suspend wasn't a word, but it works, to suspend the planning board meeting in order to convene an executive session, is what I wanna say.
I make a motion,
And that motion will be made and seconded by, how about Ken? And Janet will call the roll, cause we need a roll call vote on this.
and we need to shut the TV off
well, not yet.
after the vote.
So,
Tom made the motion, Kendall second.
and what you will do on this, Janet, is just
I'm
name
doing it,
everybody
yeah.
and they will voice their yes or no,
Okay,
and record what they say.
Tom Robinson,
I vote yes.
Vin Ritchie,
Yes?
Kendall Daly,
Yes.
Tom Bracco,
Yes.
all in favor.